everyone, welcome back to Cowabunga Corner. In this episode, I am sharing the Detroit Fanfare of 2011 video. This is a small convention that just started up here in Michigan. Oh, it's only been here for 2 years now. So it started in 2010. And they have a bunch of different stuff. It's kind of a multimedia event where we had Bruce Campbell there and a bunch of other artists and dealers, but their main guest at this event was Kevin Eastman. So sit back, relax, enjoy this video as we talk to some of the fans, dealers, and of course, share some of the highlights from the Kevin Eastman panel. This is Detroit Fanfare, and as you can tell, I'm racing through this just so that we can get to some of the fun stuff that we got to show. The convention was not that crowded. As you can see, we got a lot of time to go around and actually see each of the booths and what they had to offer, from t-shirts to books. But there was one special booth at this convention that stood out to me more than any other booth here. And I wonder what that booth is. My favorite booth at the convention. Gosh, I wonder why it's my favorite booth at the convention. This booth with all the cool Ninja Turtle stuff here is the Palladium RPG booth. So they had toys, they had books, they had a bunch of fun stuff for us Turtle fans. Right next to it was Styling Online, which anyone who knows me or reads any of my reviews, this is where I get most of my Ninja Turtle shirts. See, they got a lot of Turtle shirts here. They always have a lot of Turtle shirts, so I recommend checking out their website to see what other cool stuff they have. I've bought Venture Brothers and many other type of cool shirts, hats, hoodies, you name it, they got it. Walking around, there's a handful of other booths, some really nice people, and one of the main areas to go and hang out is the only area with people, and that would be the line to get your autograph from Kevin Eastman. So here's a few interviews and from Turtle fans and one of the dealers here at the convention, just saying a few words about the event and Kevin Eastman. And this is the line for Kevin Eastman, and the convention opened literally 3 minutes ago, and we're already at what is going to end up being the 5-hour mark if the line goes anything like yesterday. May I ask, what are you in line today for with Kevin?
You just said it, we're in line for Turtles.
Yes, you're getting sketches, autographs?
I'm getting sketches and autographs. I just turned in my #1 first printing to CGC yesterday, so I'm back for more punishment.
Now, is there anything special you guys are getting signed? Something you're excited about? I heard a #1.
I had my #1 yesterday. I got that out of the way so I wouldn't get mugged. I'm getting the Raphael one-shot. I'm going to get Splinter on the one that I had him sketch Raph on because they have a nice relationship. And I've got to get 2 more for my friends and the Eastman cover for the new #1 from IDW. So quite the long list. I'll be in line 4 or 5 times today.
Well, that's a nice way of doing it because a lot of people are going to be waiting. So,
yeah,
and
I've been here first. Yes.
Yes. Were you out there waiting, or did you get in earlier before the dealer room?
I have my ways.
Yep. The green badges. Now with you, did you bring in something special? I see a poster here.
Yeah, this is a Turtles wall poster. I'm not going to roll it because it's like 6 feet tall.
Yes, I have seen that one.
The kids are huge fans, and since I was a huge fan, it's like that. He's going to be 2 years old next month. It's one of the first things that we have in common. You know, that breakthrough, that whole, we might actually like the same things after all.
His first word is Cowabunga, dude.
Yeah, he's got a Donatello microfiber blanket. I have a Donatello Snuggie.
And you admitted that on camera.
I don't care. And I waited in line yesterday, got him a sketch. This time I'm getting a poster signed for him. It's amazing. The Turtles are bringing generations together. You know?
How many hours did you guys spend in line yesterday?
Well, I got here about 10:30 yesterday and got in line. I got my sketch done right before 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Right before the Turtles panel yesterday.
Oh, then that was actually, 1 o'clock, right? Lucky. A lot of people stayed after that.
I was in line for about 9 hours yesterday.
9 hours.
Well, total for all the sketches I got.
You got back in line a few times?
Yep.
What was the longest wait getting in line and getting up to Kevin that you went through?
4.5 hours straight.
4.5 hours straight? Yes, it is. He spends time with everyone individually. Have you guys ever met Kevin before?
Yeah, I've met him a few times.
Just yesterday.
Just yesterday? Then did you enjoy your experience getting the chance to meet him?
I did. It's nice to see that the success of the Turtles hasn't gotten to his head, that he still appreciates the fans individually and also as a group.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy.
And he doesn't charge for artists. He can make thousands of dollars this weekend, and he does it. He does it for free. He does it for the fans. So
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Wouldn't be famous without the fans, and he's one of those rare artists and celebrities that knows that.
Now, each of you guys are wearing exhibitor badges, so what else are you guys here promoting?
well, my friend Chris Caldwell, he's a freelance artist, and he uses these conventions to get his name out there, and does a lot of website packaging design work as well. So I come here to help him, support him, and get him where he'd like to be at.
Okay.
I am shamelessly promoting my own business, Lightning Fast Speed Dating. We've been running the sci-fi speed dating conventions on this coast for last year, and we've recently been picked up by TLC/Discovery Channel to do a reality series on it. So we filmed the pilot in New York Comic Con October 13th. I'm just here to promote that. Be very shameless about promoting it.
Anyone else up for saying anything to Cowabunga Corner video blog?
Cowabunga, dude! Hey, I'm Chris Brown from Comics and More here at the Fanfare 2011 at Cobo Hall. Having a great time. We're here, today is Sunday, it's second day. Having a great time. Yesterday was a really, really fun day. A lot of great guests. I got to meet Kevin Eastman, which was super cool. Did an awesome sketch for me of Splinter on the Fanfare blank white variant. Then got to meet him. We talked about ugly thrift store suits. That was fantastic. I enjoyed. I liked my plaid suit. Met a lot of other great people. Dan Doherty did a Planet of the Apes sketch for me, which I'm really excited about. Art Baltazar, as always, a pleasure to see him. Great time. If you didn't make Fanfare 2011, you should definitely come back next year. And if you did make Fanfare 2011, I hope you had as much fun as I did.
The reason Kevin's line was a 5-hour line to get up there and see him is because he would draw these amazing drawings of the turtles on the covers of all these blank Ninja Turtle comics they were selling at this event. It was the first issue of IDW, and they would go up there. It was the specialty item to have it blank and get a sketch. Here's a Michaelangelo sketch he just did for one of the Turtle fans who was in line. You can see that there is a lot of people in line. Some of these people had more than one of these books. And if you look at these, Kevin did a lot of detail. He wasn't just doing a little something here or there. He was taking his time to talk with people, because that's who Kevin is. He likes to get to know the fans. He likes to hear the stories. He's an amazing person overall. So getting to actually be here and see all these Turtle fans meeting Kevin for their first time was a lot of fun, as this is Kevin's first time back to Detroit since the 1980s. So over 20 years of not coming to the city, not being around in Michigan. All these Turtle fans that showed up, these are the few who found out that he was here. And really, if more people knew about this event, it would have been a lot more crowded. I don't think they could have handled the crowd because this line was crazy. It was crazy fun, though. We got to talk with several different fans. We got to know many people that we've never met before. We got to go out there and talk with people. That we would hold a spot in each other's line as we all understood one thing. Kevin's taking time with the person in front of us. He's going to take time for us as well when we get up there. I had a handful of books that needed to be signed, but I only did one book at a time because I already knew the line was 5 hours, and I wasn't going to do that to people. So I had 2 people who needed books shipped out, and I had my mom and I. So we ended up getting all 4 book covers done, but it was a lot of going through line, figuring out how we're doing this, and having fun. And that's what conventions are all about. And Kevin really was the essence of this convention. He didn't charge for these autographs, these sketches. He would sign any turtle item or whatever you brought up there for him to sign. He was right there with the fans and enjoying every bit of it as well. And we also got the Kevin Eastman panel out of this event. So what ends up happening there is Kevin's up there telling his stories of the behind the scenes of Turtles. Now, I can't share the full panel because, one, it's over an hour long. Two, there's video footage from the Ninja Turtle documentary. So what I'm going to do here is some highlights, mainly of Kevin talking from the panel, where he's answering some of the questions, and just hear his stories for who he is. And have fun with it, because Kevin sure did. You'll see that I'm up there on the panel and one of the awesome people from the Ninja Turtle documentaries. But I'll let all of us introduce ourselves, as here is the highlights from the Kevin Eastman panel.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 25th panel.
Yeah.
So 25 years. And
Yes.
this Kevin Eastman.
Thank you very much.
Never heard of him.
Stole that turtle idea from those neighborhood kids and buried in the shell of her. So who else we have here today?
My name's Randall Law, and along with my partners, we're doing a documentary on the history of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that's why we're here today. And we can show some samples from our doc a little later. When we first started doing this, I was one of those guys that was in a comic store in Toronto, and I said, this is never going to work. I mean, I had my Frank Millers and everything, and I saw the Turtles comic, and I thought, like I misread what it was. I didn't pick it up. And somebody else said to me, no, you have to read it. It's awesome. And then I did get it, and I thought, holy smokes. And I love the art in that. But then you meet him, and you realize it's about enthusiasm, and it's as if a comic fan and a comic reader and a comic lover made a comic that he would love. And that's that vibe. That it's not like a crass discussion in how to market something, how to pick the best thing, how to make the most money or whatever. It was like, this is awesome, and then you made that. And in all that footage, that's what you see. Like, you're constantly surprised by everything that's happening. So there's young Kevin Eastman like, wow!
I still do.
You're really amazed. And you see that, it's like, he's like, whoa, wow, we did it! There's all this,
What's funny is we were walking in this morning, and I was running a little late, and I was like, where the hell am I supposed to be? So I'm walking through the convention, and I was like, going along the side with you and these guys, and I see this huge line, I go, wow, who are those guys waiting for? And they all look at me, and you, and I'm like, what? Wow! We got to Stan, I said, who's signing? Is it Stan Lee or something? No, it is fascinating. Like I said, and you said very well, it's sort of like we did do something for ourselves. We came out of such a happy place and such a nice place that we wanted to really do something that was ours and original and inspired, and kind of something that like we'd like to read, like the little in-jokes that we liked and that stuff. And when I said, for sure, like, I didn't think we'd sell the first issue. When we sold out of the first issue and we did a reprint, I sold out, I went back, I was cooking lobsters in Maine over the summer. So when in Dover, New Hampshire, we sold the first issue, it sold out. I finished signing those books, and I went back to work and cook lobsters for Memorial Day to Labor Day. And when it came around to that fall, and we were still getting orders for books, and distributors who would order some of these books were calling and saying, well, when are you going to do another one? And Peter and I were like, maybe we should come up with an idea to do another one. And that's when we started working on issue 2, and that was sort of, again, it was I say it's a happy accident, because we said, well, where do we go from here? And that's how we approached almost every issue. It's like, if you look at, like, it's kind of funny because I'm doing this stuff with IDW right now, which is, we're doing the new Turtles comic, and thank you all for buying copies. It's fantastic. It's been great to sort of go in and work with Tom Waltz on his, and it's really his driven project, because he really came up with such an awesome way to sort of set up the Connect first, and then set up the entire Turtles universe. But we're doing it in a way that stands on the shoulders of everything that came before, mainly on the original series, secondarily on like a lot of the licensing stuff that came later, and then finally bringing it to a place where, by the time we get done with the 12 issues that we're working on now, you will have a foundation that sort of the theme and the style of storytelling is much like we did in the original series that Peter and I did, because we only did 15 issues together, seriously, not seriously, but that was it. I mean, a lot of people think that there was a lot more turtle work that we did together, but Peter and I did 15 books before everything took off and went crazy. So it's inspired and drawn in that same sort of spirit as the original series, but encapsulating and catching up on some of the stuff that I think a lot of fans are going to really enjoy, having them all tied together in one place. But it's funny, I'm doing right now is the Ultimate Collection, which is coming out this fall, which is doing an absolutely fantastic job of, it's going to be 9 by 12 in size, so it's oversized, it's digitized, and I'm doing all these annotations, so I've been going through each issue and finding little isms and stuff that we were doing at that time. It's been kind of an awesome trip mentally to go back to sort of take, remember Pete and I sitting in the same room and the 2 overstuffed chairs across from each other working on the issues and what kinds of stuff we were thinking about. Like I was saying, like with issue 2, it's like we had no idea what we were doing, how to do a story in issue 2, and that's when April sort of arrived as a character. We said, well, let's have this April as a scientist. We'll have these Mauser characters, or and that evolved, and that sold enough that we had to come up with number 3, and a lot of number 3 started with, I said, I've never seen a car chase in comics. And so this is how we used to brainstorm. I said, well, let's do something with a car chase, and we have a bit of a thread here, and let's do something here. And we sort of pulled together this thing, and I did, an 11-page chase with the cops chasing April and the turtles in this van. And we were sort of the kings of our own universe because we had no publisher, we had no editor, we had nobody that say we could do it, we couldn't do it, but the fans that were buying it. So we just sort of, just said, well, let's just keep doing the kinds of stories that we want to read, and hopefully that'll resonate. By the time we get to issue 4, heading to issue 5, we sort of said, okay, we borrowed everything we can from Frank Miller and Chris Claremont, New Mutants, and all that stuff. Let's now get our next favorite genre, which is Star Wars. So that's where issue 5, by the time the Turtles were going into outer space, it was, now we're going to rip on George Lucas for the next, I don't know how many issues. We knew specifically that we were using our idea as a basis, and because of, inspirations like Jack Kirby and other people that that created these amazing things and lost their rights, we had control of our rights, so we were very sort of cognizant of what we wanted to have done or not done with our characters. But we also knew that we had written all the original stories to be the kind of stories that we would like to read when we were working on a TV and animated show. We knew it was for a very specific audience. So every decision that was made was one, because people go, oh, back in those days, they said, oh, you sold out, you sold out. And, and I say, well, we made a lot of money, so too bad. So no, what I always say that, I said,
Can you tell me how to sell out exactly?
But it was, it came from that same happy place. I mean, it's, when people, we did it, one, being in control of our creations. Every decision was made that we made it and we approved it. We knew, like, again, the decision to do the different colored bandanas, which somebody asked me about already during the show, this gentleman. And it was, he said, who came up with that idea? And it was Pete Laird. And it was sort of, it was one of those things that when the toy company said, well, we have to do 4 turtles, and the way you've done them, Mr. Eastman, painting them all with red bandanas, how do you tell them apart? Peter and I are like, well, we know who they are, Raphael, do the weapons, idiot. But they were like, no, well, we need to sell toys, and we need the kids to sort of tell them apart, their personalities apart a little bit more. And Pete said, well, how about if we did different colored bandanas? And that was sort of, I thought the initials on the belt were a little much, but at the same time, and so even the changes in the origin story, because we had a lot more blood and death and that kind of stuff. We changed it up from this reincarnation kind of thing, or this transformation. But every story nuance, every reason that we did that we had say over, we had control over and approval of for the most part. So it was sort of so if you hated one of those things, it was our fault. If you liked it, it was our fault as well. And I always love to tell the story because it's one of my favorites of when, because I say, we didn't think it would ever work as a TV series. We didn't think it would work as a toy line. When it came out, Christmas '87, between the holiday break for kids, especially on the East Coast, is between Christmas and New Year's. I ran the first 5 episodes, and we worked on each of those. And we saw them as they evolved and as they finished as a series, and we were like, nobody's going to watch this shit. And then because the toys came out later, and when the animated show came out and did so well in the ratings, it was mind-blowing, and we started working on the new series. And then when Playmates did the toys, and they shipped to a local KB store, because Peter and I were in Massachusetts, and so we went down to Springfield and the closest KB store, and we're walking literally down the aisle to the action figure section, and this mom is pulling this kid out of the action figure section saying, "I'm not buying you one of those stupid Ninja Turtles." and we were sort of like, oh my God, what have we done? And it just so almost from that point on, it was a lot of, sort of holding on for dear life in some ways, and then in much like like Randall said quite nicely, is each place, whether it was toys or animation or the movies, it was their own planetary system, of their own universe, of their own way of doing things and operating, and things that we had to adjust to, adapt to, and apply. Sort of our idea has to be this to work in this thing, and we worked on every aspect of that. And we were, I think, surprised that it worked each time. I have a question for this young lady. When when you hear us talking about all this stuff and you see all this stuff, when did you stumble onto the Turtles, and what worked for you when you saw them?
Well, I personally stumbled onto the Turtles like many through the cartoons and the toys. It was in October 1989, so I missed the premiere of the show, but I came in late enough to where there was a lot of episodes to start watching and just get pulled into it. And it was really the personality of the characters, more than the fights or the weapons and stuff. It was each of the personalities playing off of each other, written so well in the cartoon originally. In the toys, my first turtle I ever saw was a Ninja Turtle action figure of Michaelangelo. And I didn't see the cartoon or anything yet, and it was inside a tin with He-Man and Thundercats and Ghostbuster toys, and I pulled this turtle out of there, and I'm like, what is this? It didn't have its nunchucks, it had the other little weapon stuck in the belt, and the kid I was visiting, oh, it's a Ninja Turtle, and I'm like, okay, and I'm going to play with this toy. I don't know what it is, but I like it. And then a week later, I was shown the episode, and it was literally the original cartoon that first got me hooked, but it was the movie that kept me as a fan, the original costumes coming out, the new storyline. I liked the depth of that storyline better than the Matayoshi storyline. And then I read the comic books, and I found my real favorite history of the Ninja Turtles. So you guys did fantastic. Wonderful job on the original comic book series. And having you back involved has been one of the biggest excitements I know for a lot of the fans, just your name being on the label.
Hell yeah.
It's funny as I just say, it reminds me of when you tell your story, because I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old, and the 10-year-old was sort of, he liked the Turtles in a different kind of way. He liked a different kind of character. He liked the Turtles, and he liked the fact that I drew. He was sort of more aware that I draw those, but I wasn't doing that much of them at that time. But I have a 5-year-old, Shane, that a couple years ago, he was sort of in Peter's room. He did the same thing. He was like playing with some of Peter's old toys, and he picks up the Turtles. He starts playing with them, and he said, "What are these?" And it's like. And he's like, well, those are the Ninja Turtles, and he said, well, Dad draws them, and that doesn't mean anything to a 3-year-old. All that means to him is that he likes the toys. And so, as he sort of started, watching some of the episodes, he became obsessed. And it's like, it was Raphael 2 years in a row for Halloween, and he's got all the toys and all this stuff. And it was sort of interesting to me in that it had nothing to do with me, nothing the fact that I'm drawing the Turtles or whatever part I have in the creation of them, that kind of stuff. He just liked them, and to me that was, I'd never really seen that close. I mean, I'm lucky to have so many wonderful fans, but it was sort of like seeing this little kid become obsessed over the Turtles. In a way, it was sort of bizarre, and he just saw something he liked. He said, I don't care what I want to be Raphael, get out of here.
It's funny, when we've been talking to people all along, that experience and the way the Turtles are perceived, it's always super positive. Like when we interviewed you, all very positive, and you go out and go visit hospitals, and the kids perceive it in a really positive way. When we talk to the voice cast from the old animated show, all their interactions with kids, again, it's often sick kids or kids in compromised situations, all respond positively. But at some point, some people would say, well, these Turtles are fighting, and it's about violence or whatever. But the funny thing is, that's never what everyone attaches to, is it? It's never about that element.
Right. You're right.
So what do you think, like as you're sitting there, and I don't think anyone here is surprised, have you met a darker, more adult themed it's a magazine that is not aimed at kids. It's somehow this thing that you created with your interest not necessarily being for kids, somehow it just hit kids right in the sweet spot. What do you think that's attributed to?
Well, it's a good question, and it is true. I mean, over the years we were asked, like, well, what is it about, the turtles that people like, and Michele will have some thoughts, but at the same time, for me, it was sort of, initially the title, when you look at we get past the joking about the title, well, whether you love it or you hate it after you pick it up first and go, what the hell is this? And then I think, when you look at the components, that a lot of it's not really mean-spirited, it is sort of, the approach that we seem to always take or side with was that these characters kind of wanted to be teenagers first, which we all do. They had their own little cliquey isms, Raphael, because it is always, people have their favorite turtles for a different reason that they have their favorite turtles. They could identify, like, I guess any group of kids on the schoolyard, we had, the guys that I hung out with, it was like you had the one that was more geeky than the rest, the one that was smarter, the one that was always cracking jokes, and then the tough guy kind of thing. So they could identify with each of the characters, but first and foremost, that they want to be teenagers first. They each had their own personalities that different kids could attach to, and then it came down to what we all hope, I think, is that at the end of the day, when the chips are down or somebody sort of gets in your face, we always want to be the hero that does the right thing. We want to be the Indiana Jones guy. We want to be the guy that kicks some ass. Even though I got beat up a bunch of we all get beat up in reality. But it's like you first thought is you want to be that hero and you want to be the person that does the right thing always. And so I think you sort of compile that into a world where they're basically misfits. And I think growing up, we all think we're misfits. I was like, me and two other guys, David Peabody and Jim McNaughton were the only guys that collected comics in my school up in Maine. And so we were like, considered pretty goofy. But we had our own little clique, and then so we all feel like we're kind of outcasts, a bit of misfits, and then Splinter is sort of this guiding character, that kung fu sort of the words of wisdom to sort of give you enough to sort of find your way, but still a father figure that we all need that in our life to drive us the right way. It's a combination of all that. We tried to again combine that sort of attitude with stories that were fun and had a good sensibility. I can't stress enough, I think we have the most amazing fans in the world, and I always love, and I would love, especially in the early days, that they would come up and people have read the comics and they've read so much into them that they make up their own past histories about them and the things that they would like or not like or whatever. And deeper, so they say, well, Michaelangelo is more like this and he'd do this, and I'm like, really? Where do you get that from? But more importantly, it's like they sort of read into things that were, again, what I call happy accidents. Because you look at that, and at the end, when you look back at something like that we did, or a story point that we did, and when it plays out that way, and you look at it that way, like again, the misfit angle, or coming out of the shells, or that kind of thing, it does have a lot of sort of isms that I've had, fans again come up and say, like Michele saying that, I was felt lost and lonely and other thing, but when I saw things like your characters that, could defend themselves and try to do, they would still do the right thing when all the chips are down all the time. It was really an inspiration. You never think of it that way. And you're like, well, geez, we just thought it was, a turtle, Bruce Lee, wasn't that funny? You never think of like, going all that deep. But it is even like, when people say, well, where did the names for like the Renaissance names come for the characters? And Pete and I were sitting in a room and we're going, well, traditional Asian names is your first thought, but that's, if you're working in an environment as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you say, well, that's not silly enough, and you say, well, Bob, Doug, Steve, that's still not silly enough, let's go, as Monty Python as we can, let's take it to the most bizarre point we can in the universe. And I was a huge art history fan, and I said, well, what if we named him after, I don't know, like Leonardo or Michaelangelo, and that's where it started, like Renaissance artists. And so, the first three, Leonardo, Michaelangelo, and Raphael came first and the easiest, and Donatello was almost named Bernini, because Bernini was my favorite sculptor of that time period, and he had done this amazing Apollo chasing Daphne, and as he's about to catch her, Athena sort of turns her into this tree, and the sculptor Bernini did out of stone, Athena sort of leaves sort of sprouting out of the sculpture and stuff. I'm like, God, nobody can do that. And then Pete came back and said, well, we got these 3 O's, I mean 2 other O's, why don't we have, how about Donatello? And I'm like, oh yeah, that works better. So, what's funny is I was, even now in the new series, you'll know they're spelling Michaelangelo the right way, and it's spelled the wrong way, which was my fault, because out of the 2 of us, when they flipped the coin to see who would lose to do the lettering in the original comic books, my lettering was slightly neater than Peter's, but I was a much worse speller. And so I did Michaelangelo spelling it like Michael, you know.
How did you write Splinter? I mean, he's old, wise, and just the things he says, and unless you've been around for 50, 60, 70 years, at that point in time, you were very young. How did you write an old wise man so well without the life experience behind it?
But 2 ways, really. It was sort of a, you know, Peter is a bit older than I am, not that I'm saying anything, you know, he just, he's more patient and more, you know, when I used to say, like, you know, Peter's kind of like Donatello, and I'm, you know, kind of he's very methodical, and the Casio watch and all that stuff, and I'll be like Raphael going, oh, he just, and so when we approach something like Splinter, because Splinter is always derived from Stick and Daredevil. I mean, a lot of people, like, you know, when Frank Miller did the Hand, the Daredevil fought the Hand, that's where the foot came from, and Daredevil's mentor Stick is where Splinter came from. So when I said we were hugely influenced by that kind of stuff, I wasn't kidding. We stole that stuff.
Did you not get Shredder from Grater?
Shredder came.
Daredevil's cheese grater.
He's the lesser known Grater. But when we want to have this father figure, we thought back to, like, one of our favorite TV series for Pete and I was the Kung Fu TV series, and we loved those flashbacks when they showed David Carradine's character back in China, and they'd be the, you know, when you get, you know, grasshopper, you can take the pebble from my hand kind of thing. So, you know, it's funny, and this is a short anecdote, but it's very applicable. It makes sense. When we first started doing the Turtles comic book, we were doing a comic book about 4 martial arts characters. Neither Pete and I knew martial arts. We just sort of read a few books and watched our favorite Bruce Lee movies a couple extra times and tried to figure out how martial arts worked. The story took place in New York City. Neither Pete and I had been to New York City. I think Pete went once, I had never been there. So we're sort of writing a story about characters that were doing martial arts that we didn't know how to do in a city that we've never been to, about an idea that we just had, we sort of, everything we absorbed sort of came out of the series. So when you write something like Splinter, it's exactly that. Like, well, this seems to make sense if we kind of write it like the grasshopper guy and Kung Fu and wing it. That's where it came from.
Can you say a few words about Detroit Fanfare?
Hello. I'm here. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Are you recording?
Yes, I am.
I'm actually wrapping up the last day of the Detroit Fanfare, and I've had an absolutely wonderful time. I've got an awesome group of fans here that have waited all day for autographs. And what they don't know is all I'm going to do from this point on is just little bunny sketches, like little bunny with a. That's it. But no, I've had an absolute one of the best times ever. The fans here are awesome. The weather's been great. The food, superb.
Ooh.
I'm just being silly, but it's like, no, I've had the best time, and I actually can't wait to come back next year.
What about that coffee?
Now you have it on tape, so it's
Okay, thank you. Well, that was Detroit Fanfare 2011 with guest Kevin Eastman. This is an overlook as they are tearing down for the weekend. It was a fun event. We had a blast, and we're looking forward to seeing many more Turtle fans at the future events. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that video, as we had a blast having Kevin here in Detroit. The convention was at the Cobo Hall, which is right downtown Detroit, and it was a very fun event. As not many people showed up that year, it still was a success for any Ninja Turtle fan. As anyone saw, that line that Kevin had was a 5-hour line. He had a blast, we had a blast, and I hope that he comes back again in the near future. In the meantime, we will catch you guys here on Cowabunga Corner next week.